everyone, and welcome. We will be starting a new text today. Well, for those who have been in this class, new text, and those who are joining now, new text. So, for both, a new text. The last text that was studied at this time was Manashodhanam. And the principle in the text Manashodhanam was most of us have heard or know theoretically this sentiment Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. My nature is bliss. But somehow that knowledge doesn't take root. Means that bliss is not my personal experience. And Guruji explains in that text that it is because of impurities. And he emphasizes the importance of purity of mind and how to get that purity also. In the Bhagavad Gita, you see the same message echoed in different words. So here we will be studying chapter 16 and 17 to try and develop those qualities that will help our mind to be more empowered, to be more calm, peaceful, happy, and for the knowledge that we study to take root. Now, before we enter into Bhagavad Gita, it is traditional for us to chant the Gita Dhyanam. The Gita Dhyanam is a set of meditative verses with which we invoke the great beings because of which we have Bhagavad Gita. We think about the great virtues that we get by studying the Bhagavad Gita. And so we meditate on this Gita with the hope that Gita Maya will reveal her secrets to us. So today being the first day, we'll chant the whole thing. And from next week, we'll chant half of it, about a half. So I'll share screen and you can all chant along. Okay. Can you see my screen? Yeah? Okay. All together. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Grathitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashaധ്യായിनीम् Amba Tvamanusandathami Bhagavad-gite Bhavatveshinim Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullara Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikaparnaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamritaduhe Namaha Sarvopanishado Gavo Dogdha Gopalanandanaha Partho Vatsasudhir Bhokta Dugdham Gitamritam Mahat Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsachanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Bhishmadrona Tatha Jayadratha Gandharani Lotpala Shalyagrahavati Krupena Vahani Karnena Velakula Ashvathama Vikarna Ghora Makara Duryodhana Vartini Sotirna Khalu Pandavairana Nadi Kaivartaka Keshavaha Parasharya Vachas Saroja Mamalam Gitartha Sambodhana bodhitam loke sajjana shatpadairaharaha pepiyamanam muda bhuyad bharata pankajam kalimala pradvamsena shreyase Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat kripatamaham vande paramananda madhavam yam brahma varunendra rudra marutaha stunvanti divyaistavaihi vedai sangapado padakramopanishadaihi गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः देवाय तस्मै नमः Hari Om. Okay, so the Bhagavad Gita begins in chapter 1 with us meeting Arjuna, our protagonist. He is a successful, dynamic, skilled professional. And we see how, in chapter 1, we see how, in the face of a challenge that matters the most for Sanatana Dharma, he totally collapsed. And Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya explains that his problem was really shoka and moha, sorrow and delusion. Before I continue, does everyone know who Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya is? By show of hands, who does not know Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya? Okay. Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya is known as one of the most influential philosophers in Sanatana Dharma, specifically in Advaita Vedanta. He is considered to be an incarnation of Bhagavan Shiva himself, and he is the one who came to teach and revive Sanatana Dharma at a time when it was heavily misunderstood. He has written extensive compositions and commentaries on Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. He has written introductory texts to help us to understand the Upanishads and to clarify what the meaning really is. Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya is also responsible for the systematization of our Sanatana Dharma in its current form. And in his 32 years of life, he did more than all of us could do in lifetimes. Forget do, more than all of us could study properly in lifetimes also. So when we study Bhagavad Gita, we actually study his commentary in Chinmaya Mission for proper understanding. So you will hear me reference Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya sometimes in this class. Okay? He explains that Arjuna's problem is delusion and sorrow. And this delusion and sorrow is seen manifesting as selfishness. But that selfishness is colored in seemingly considerate language, like, how can I kill my people? I'd rather not have anything and let them have everything than cause destruction in society. But really what's happening is justification of something of giving himself reasoning why he doesn't need to fight. And so many people listen and they're like, yeah, Arjuna was right. You shouldn't fight your family. Why did Lord Krishna force him to fight? And totally wrong understanding. But anyways, that is chapter 1. In chapter 2, Bhagavan has to get this Arjuna to get up and fight because posterity depends on him right now. Now, some people might say, well, how does this matter to us? Well, it is very simple. Because we are just like Arjuna. And in our own small ways, Dharma depends on us at every moment that we face situations. And just like Arjuna, we collapse as easily as soon as a difficult challenge presents itself to us. So, what is Bhagavan's solution? Well, Bhagavan starts to teach him spiritual knowledge. That too, the highest spiritual knowledge. Now, who would have thought that that would be the problem, the solution to Arjuna's problem? I don't want to fight. Oh, you don't want to fight? Did you know that the self is never unborn, is never born or dies? Like, that is the solution to I don't want to fight and I've dropped my bow and I'm really sad to fight with Bhishma and Drona. Well, that is a great indication for us too, that the only true solution to our sorrow and our delusion, which is our fundamental problem, whether we know it, whether we understand it or not, whether we agree or not, is this knowledge which he's giving to Arjuna. And Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya clearly says that he's using Arjuna as an instrument, Arjunam nimitti kritya, to teach us. So everything that Bhagavan Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, he is really saying to us. So in chapter 2, you find a summary of the teaching that has the capacity to transform our sorrow into joy, our delusion into clarity. It has the capacity to remove our ignorance completely. And everything is a temporary fix, at best, if it is not this. But the issue is that chapter 2 is like a table of contents. Before you can breathe, he's finished yelling at him. He's finished teaching him the highest knowledge, meaning Sankhya Yoga. He's finished Karma Yoga. He's including an analysis of his karma from so many different points of view. He's finished talking about the vision of a realized master. And before you know what hit you, you're like, whoa, what? Can you come again? What? So many things so fast Bhagavan Sri Krishna goes through in chapter 2. So now from chapter 3 to 14, he slows down and he backs up. And here in these chapters, you find a systematic presentation, topic by topic. Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Jnana Yoga. Who am I? Who is this Jiva? What is this Jagat? Who is Jagadishvara? How are we connected? All of those things Bhagavan Sri Krishna goes through slowly. Then in chapter 15, the essence of the teaching is presented. Actually, all the teachings of this spiritual knowledge, which are meant to remove our shoka and moha, is done by chapter 15. After that, there is no more spiritual knowledge, self-knowledge left to be taught. In that chapter, Bhagavan Sri Krishna concludes by saying, Iti guhyatamam shastram idam ukta maya. This shastra has been taught or spoken by me. But there are still 3 more chapters, 16, 17, 18. So what happens in those chapters is a few things that were mentioned in earlier chapters but not elaborated on are now taken up in the remaining 3 chapters. But a question comes to some people. You know, if you understand, for example, addition, you understand 2 plus 2 equals 4, and then you can do 597 plus 108, and you can get the right answer mentally in one moment, right? Do you really need to go back to the textbook that teaches elementary addition and do all the practice questions that you didn't do, like 12 plus 13 and 5 plus 18? Well, someone will say, no, you don't need to, because those were presented for you to try to understand and learn the concept of addition. You've already learned it. You've already fully understood it. There's no need to go back. So then the question is, well, how come after this knowledge is taught, there's still something left to be said? So then there's 2 options. Option 1, well, not everyone understands this knowledge. So you need more explanation, like remedial chapters, revision, So only those who didn't get it, they need to study these remaining chapters, like that. Or the other option is having theoretically understood something, it doesn't mean it's your experience. Something more is required to complete the picture. Now, in this class, we will be studying chapter 16 and 17 over the next few months. And these two chapters focus on values. Because of that, they're taken very lightly sometimes. People dismiss it saying, oh yeah, we studied this when we were kids. Oh yeah, values again, you know? But actually, even though we may have been taught these values before, really speaking, we don't fully comprehend the value of these values or how important these principles are for anyone seeking to master their mind. It is not remedial chapters. It is not extra unnecessary chapters. These are fundamental chapters for everyone seeking peace and joy and for everyone seeking self. Because without elaboration on these values, without thinking about these things, we cannot bring the mind to peace. This knowledge that we are studying, that we have studied, if you've studied chapter 1 to 15, it cannot fundamentally take root. It's like planting a seed on concrete. You can plant it at the right time. You can make a hole also in the concrete, so that the seed doesn't go away. You can water it every day. You can put fertilizer and you can make sure it's getting sun and it's the right temperature and everything. But the ground is not prepared for the seed to become the tree. Or put another way, if you have a university student who wants to get a 4.0, but they just don't live in a way that will get them that goal, meaning they wake up late, they don't go to their classes, they don't read the chapters, they don't do their assignments, they stay out with their friends and they party and they come home, and this is how they spend their university years. Well, you know that they're not going to get the 4.0 that they want, right? In the exact same way, we also have a goal of life. And that goal of life is to gain ultimate happiness. That is what we are seeking in every interaction. That is what is really there behind every desire. And for some of us, it is unconscious. We don't know that that is what we are really seeking. But for those of us here, it's no more an unconscious seeking, but a conscious seeking. So we put effort in to study Bhagavad Gita, to understand ourselves, to get moksha. It's a great goal. But we have to ask ourselves if we are approaching that goal the way the university student is wishing for the 4.0. Meaning, is our way of life, are our actions in line with that goal? And really speaking, when we analyze, most of the time, we realize that our way of life and our actions don't line up with the goal. So these chapters are instrumental in helping us to fix that, to align our actions and our way of life and all of our thoughts with our goal. Now, this sounds very nice. Then someone might say, well, I haven't studied chapter 1 to 15. I haven't studied the self-knowledge. Now what do I do? Well, if you've not studied this self-knowledge being talked about, there is still no problem. Because of two things. Each chapter in Bhagavad Gita is considered a complete Shastra. And the other side of it is that you get to work on your mind first. And then when you study this self-knowledge, your mind will already be prepared. So when you study chapter 2, you won't be like, whoa, what just happened? You'll be like, oh, I get it. So don't worry if you haven't studied it before. It is not something that is detrimental to your understanding if you haven't studied the rest of Gita. Okay, now with that introduction, we will enter chapter 16. Chapter 16 is Daivasara Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, the yoga of the divine and decadent, demonic, insert other terrible translation in English. Well, Bhagavan divides all qualities and traits into two groups. Devi Sampat, loosely translated as divine wealth, which is conducive for gaining spiritual knowledge. They help to break our ropes of bondage and get moksha. Then you have the Asuri Sampat, which are obstacles to our spiritual pursuit. They bring bondage, they bring sorrow, and therefore they should be dropped. And most places you will see the translation demonic for asura, but it is a terrible translation. So I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to say asuri, right? And over the next few weeks, you will gain clarity yourself over what exactly it is. But for now, you just put in your mind that's the negative part. So there's the positive part, which is the Devi Sampat, the divine qualities, and then there's the negative part. Okay. Now, the second super important thing to remember as we go along is that this this study is supposed to be a mirror into our own personality, into our own personality. It is not a calculation of how many of these qualities your children or your spouse or your parents or your neighbors or your co-workers have. There should be absolutely no thought about who has these qualities around you. It is an analysis of you, meaning me, each of us, what our inner personality looks like. Unless at a time where you're using a role model to see how it is being practiced. There also, you're not judging whether they have it or not. You're seeing how the value is being practiced. Right? Sampat means wealth. So one final question before we start the verses comes up. Well, why are they both called Sampat? I can see why it is Devi Sampat, why there will be something called divine wealth, but how can there be something called Asuri wealth? Asuri Sampat, right? Both of them are wealth? Well, think, no? What is wealth? Well, wealth is something that we use to get something else. It's not an end in itself, right? What does it do? It gives us purchasing power. It gives us the power to get things that we want or that we think we want, right? And it gives some people a sense of worth. So now think, why is are the Devi qualities or the noble virtues called a wealth? Because with these qualities, we have the purchasing power, for lack of a better word, or the power to get peace, happiness, knowledge for ourselves and for others. That is why it is a wealth. It has the capacity to generate these things. Right? Now, why are the Asuri qualities called Sampat? Well, because when you have negative traits, they have the power to bring something into your life too. They have the power to bring sorrow and agitation and frustration. And I mean, whether you want it or not, when you go and you buy something expensive, not realizing it's Chinese goods, you don't go there thinking it's going to spoil in a day. So you think you're getting something good. Well, in the same way, when you have these negative traits and you're pursuing all positive things in life, you don't know. Actually, these traits are bringing into your life sorrow and agitation and frustration and all of those negative things. Someone might argue, no, 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 but I don't value that. Wealth is valued, you know? So the other way to see it is only when we experience the effect of these Asuri qualities, means we really experience the negative effects, that we look for the good ones. It is, therefore, you can say it is the negative qualities and their resultant consequences that shake us into thinking about removing them, and experiencing them in their true form takes us towards true wealth. So they are a wealth in that they make us realize it is not what we want and make us pursue the real wealth that we are looking for. Right? But Bhagavan calls it wealth, so you have to be logical in your mind how it is a wealth, however you want to explain it. So far, so good? Okay. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. This chapter begins with Bhagavan Shri Krishna telling Arjuna something directly. There are many chapters where it starts with Arjuna Uvacha, where Arjuna is the one who asks Bhagavan Shri Krishna a question, and that propels the train of thought for that chapter. When Bhagavan doesn't wait for Arjuna to ask a question, it is usually because, not usually, it is because he feels what he has to say is crucial, whether you have a question about it or not. And most of the time, we don't have questions about values because we think we know them. So Bhagavan starts himself, right? The other thing is that these values that we are going to see, you will see that they are coming again. They came in chapter 13, and they were called jnana at that time. The values were called knowledge, because without those values, you cannot get the highest knowledge. So Bhagavan is teaching these values again. Now, everyone who's a Balvihar teacher, this should make you feel nice because you should not feel like the kids are studying these values again and again and again, and it will be boring for them. Bhagavan Shri Krishna himself brings them up again and again, right? Okay, I get it. These values are important. Now, can we actually see what is this Devi Sampat? Yes, let us chant. So this chapter 16, if you don't have it, you can find it online. You can buy the book on Amazon and get it delivered to you. If you live in a country that delivers overnight, you can get it at the Chinmaya bookstore. Wherever you get it, have a copy, at least from next week when we are studying. Okay. Jay, will you repeat? So I will chant and everyone will repeat, and Jay will repeat unmuted. So you'll have someone accompany. Shri Bhagavan Vacha.
श्रीभगवानुवाच
अभयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः
अभयं सत्त्वसंशुद्धिः
ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः
ज्ञानयोगव्यवस्थितिः
दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च
दानं दमश्च यज्ञश्च
स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम्.
स्वाध्यायस्तप आर्जवम्.
Oh, I should have mentioned, because the verb comes in verse 3, this is an incomplete sentence. We'll chant verse 2 and verse 3 also one time. Okay. Ahimsa satyamakrодः
अहिंसा सत्यमक्रोधः
त्यागः शान्तिरपैशुनम्
त्यागः शान्तिरपैशुनम्
दया भूतेष्वलो लुप्त्वम्
दया भूतेष्वलोलुप्तम्
मार्दवम् ह्रीरचापलम्
मार्दवम् ह्रीरचापलम्
तेज क्षमा धृति शौचम्
तेज क्षमा धृति शौचम्
अद्रोहो नातिमानिता
अद्रोहो नातिमानिता
भवन्ति सम्पदम् दैवीम्
भवन्ति सम्पदं दैवीम्
अभिजातस्य भारत.
अभिजातस्य भारत.
Okay. In these three verses, Bhagavan Sri Krishna lists 26 values, starting with Abhayam, fearlessness. And the sentence ends in verse 3, where he says, Bhavanti Sampadam Devim Abhijatasya Bharata. Bharata, O Bharata, O Arjuna, here he's referred to as Bharata, one who revels in light. It is as though Bhagavan is indicating to Arjuna at the beginning that don't worry, You have these qualities, this Devi Sampat. You just get confused sometimes, right? And remember, we are Arjuna. So we are also Bharata. So we also revel in light. We also revel in knowledge. And therefore, we will find these qualities in ourselves as well to some degree. He says, these qualities, bhavanti sampadam devim abhijatasya. You'll see this at the end of verse 3. These qualities are there in a person who is born with a divine nature. Or, in other words, these are what constitute divine wealth for a person. These qualities are seen in somebody who is sooner or later going to be liberated. You know how if you see someone eating junk food and fried food all the time, you know sooner or later it's going to lead to some major health issues for them, right? The eating of the junk food is a predictor of the ill health, right? Here in the same way, if you see these qualities, and see means what? See in oneself, right? They indicate that sooner or later you're going to be liberated. Means you're going to be permanently happy. It is actually inspiration to keep us going on the path, to keep trying to develop these qualities. Okay. Now, regarding these qualities, some people are born with them, right? And sometimes you can see them manifest from the time the child is a baby itself. Like that our Puja Gurudev, when Chatambi Swamigal met him, he saw all these divine qualities in him somehow, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to be from birth. Suddenly, something can happen, and these qualities which were inside dormant, they come out. If you see any indication of these qualities in yourself, it means you put work in a previous life to develop them. But if you're here studying them, it also means that there's still work to be done. Meaning, if you had enough of these values, then you would be realized and you wouldn't be here in the first place. If we are studying them, there's still work to be done. Okay? Now, for reference, we had gone through these exact values in a youth and young professionals class a couple of years now. And when I had started, my plan was always to do 3 or 4 a week. But the chicks who are here will tell you it ended up being like one per class, if not one per 2 classes. Now, 26 values. If we go through one a week, well, we'll never finish. So we're not going to study them in super detail. We're going to see a few of the key things in each value. And these values are things that you all please continue to think about over the weeks and years as you try to bring them into your own life. Okay. First one is abhaya. Abhaya means fearlessness. There are different kinds of fearlessness in this world. Some people will say, I am not afraid of spiders. I am not afraid of the dark. I am not afraid of eating food cooked by my children. Different fears, fearlessness exists, right? Some fearlessness is stupid also. Like, I am not scared to post my whole life on social media. I'm not scared if Google has access to all my data. Then some fearlessness is wrong also. Like teens are not scared of their parents, right? Forget teens. Nowadays, children also are not scared of their parents, right? But here, when Bhagavan says abhayam, specifically, he's referring to the fearlessness that is required to walk the spiritual path or the righteous path. And a tremendous amount of fearlessness is required for that. Because most of the time, the world doesn't understand or the world is against it. You just tell somebody who doesn't go to Gita class that you're going to a Gita class at 7:30 or 6:30 in the morning or 5:30, whatever your time zone. And they will ask you, is everything okay? Like, is something wrong? What is going on in your life that you need to study Gita at 6:30, 7:30 in the morning on a Saturday? They don't get it and they think you're not okay. It requires fearlessness to get up and walk the spiritual path because most people don't understand. They think we're mad, right? Now, this fearlessness is born of conviction in something greater. And if you're looking for examples, our Prahladji, who stood up, not stood up, who stood strong in the face of Hiranyakashipu's bullying, or our Mirabai, who didn't waver in her devotion to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, no matter the obstacles that came. You see how, because they had conviction in something greater, there was an unshakable fearlessness in their personality. Right? Now, some people appear to be fearless when they're doing something wrong, right? At that time, it is just pretense or shamelessness, because you cannot have true fearlessness if it is not righteous. Ravana is the best example of that. When he went to kidnap Sitaji, Tulsidashi writes, he went Shvanakinai. He went like a frightened dog to kidnap Sitaji, right? So when Bhagavan says we have to have fearlessness, it is not a blanket fearlessness. We should have fear of doing wrong things, right? But we should have fearlessness in doing what is right and what is noble. Now, all this is nice, but the real question is how to develop fearlessness. We develop fearlessness by seeing where the fear is coming from and removing its source. For example, one of the things that brings fear is attachment. When I am attached to something or someone or some situation, then I have a fear of losing it because I feel that that thing which I'm attached to is giving me happiness. And if I lose it, then I'm going to lose happiness. So, to develop fearlessness, that is to remove the fear that is born of attachment, we need to reflect on our attachments. That is a whole separate topic, but that is the uh, antidote to that type of fear. Then another type of fear is born when we don't do our duty. Everyone would have experienced that. When you haven't done your homework and you show up in class, there is fear. When you haven't renewed your insurance and there's a police on the road, there is fear. there is fear. When you left your license at home, the one day that you left your license at home, you're like, oh God, let them not see me. When you haven't done your duty, there is fear. So the solution to bring that fearlessness, do your duty. That's all. Right? And then fear also comes when we do things that are prohibited. Well, this is an extension of if you're doing your duty, then you're not going to be doing things that are prohibited. Right? So, like this, we try to develop fearlessness by seeing what the cause of that fear is. Most of the time, it will be because of attachment and not doing our duty. You observe and check if what our rishis are saying is true. Okay? Now, last thing on this. The more convinced we are about the importance of this knowledge, the more fearless we will become in pursuing it. Guaranteed. And in Vibhishana Gita, Bhagavan Rama, when he's describing the chariot of victory, the chariot of success, the chariot of dharma to Vibhishana, the first quality that he calls is Sauraja, courage. And he describes it as one of the wheels that moves the chariot of victory forward. Right? Sauraja and fearlessness are very close because it requires courage to be fearless. Okay, that was Abhayam. Now, Sattva Samshiddhi, purity of mind. What is purity of mind? Well, it is the lack of impurity of mind. What else will it be? Right? How do you measure impurity of mind? I know my mind is impure if it is wandering, if it is restless, and if the thoughts are not noble. See this test, right? This is your litmus test for impurity. 2 tests. No, 3 tests. 3 tests you can have, right? Test number 1. When I sit and I tell my mind to focus on its breath for 5 minutes, do I have the capacity to let the mind listen to me and it stays there? Or does it go to the moon and come back 5 times in that 5 minutes? Or 100 times in that 5 minutes? The capacity to let the mind stay where you want it to stay without wandering, without being agitated, that is a sign of purity of mind. And to test purity of mind, you see, does my mind wander when I tell it to stay? Of course, everybody's mind wanders. So then the test of developing purity will be, is my mind starting to wander less? Is it less agitated? Is it less frustrated? Like that. That's test 1. Second test. How embarrassed would you be if people could see your thoughts while you were talking? So you have a speech bubble. Imagine this literally. You have a speech bubble where what you're saying is the speech bubble. And next to your speech bubble, there's, the dot, 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 the cloud bubble that that's they use in comics to show thoughts that are not spoken. You actually have a physical thought bubble here now, where whatever you're thinking can be seen by the other person. How embarrassed would you be? Well, some people will be like, I'm not going to talk to anyone. I'm going to hide in my room because, I say things, but then I think things, right? That's one. The other side of that is you don't even need to be talking to someone. You could just be sitting here and smiling at somebody, and they could be seeing your thoughts. Would you be embarrassed? Well, if the answer is yes, it means work is to be done to get more purity of mind, because impurity of mind is thoughts that are not noble, and purity of mind is reflected by noble thoughts, right? The other measure of impurity is how strong my likes and dislikes are. So this is a test you can do. How upset do I get when I don't get what I like, or when I get what I don't like? Not even just an outward upsetness, but how loudly does my mind complain? You just observe the mind, you know? If you observe it properly, you will see when our likes and dislikes are strong, our mind throws tantrums just like a 2 or 3-year-old will throw a tantrum. It's just that theirs are external and ours are internal. Right? Oh my God. Like we're going for satsang every night. And at satsang in the Caribbean, the tradition is many mandirs will make what they call 7 curry or prayers food. So they cook a set menu. Now, they get that as a special treat when they go to the mandir for a special occasion. But when you're going for satsang every day, then you're eating that food every day. Now, the mind could very well say, oh my God, 7 curry again? Oh my God, you won't say it out loud. You'll be like, oh my God, this food is so good. Thank you. But what is your mind saying? Again? I'm not saying that. I'm just giving an example. You go and tell people I'm complaining about the food. But the point is, when likes and dislikes are strong, the mind complains loudly. So you observe your mind. Is your mind complaining when it doesn't get what it wants, or when it gets what it doesn't want? That is a sign of impurity of mind. Okay? Okay. So those were 3. Well, how many things I told? 1, 2, 3 things. Okay. Now, when a person acts in the world and you see purity of intention, you see purity of motive in all their transactions, then you can say they have purity of mind. So one of the things we do is to try to neutralize our likes and dislikes, right? And you can do that with very simple things. You can refuse to let your mind complain, right? When your mind starts to complain, you tell your mind, so what? So what if you didn't get what you want? I'm still happy. You do what you want, mind, but you can't complain, right? You talk to your mind and you observe over time whether it makes a difference, right? The other, when there's purity, fearlessness will come naturally, right? You see the difference. This is reflected nicely in the difference between Ravana and Sitaji. Ravana was scared because he wasn't doing something pure. Sitaji, when she walked through that fire, she walked through it fearlessly because there was absolute purity. Purity brings fearlessness in a tremendous way. Okay. Now, how to purify the mind? Well, the problem is our likes and dislikes. So we do things that check and curb our likes and dislikes. One of the best devices designed by our rishis to help us to overcome our likes and dislikes is what is called daily disciplines, where you have a routine of sadhana, and everything that you do in life should be a sadhana. You have a daily discipline which you go through, which trumps all your likes and dislikes. So there's a set time to wake up. It doesn't matter if your mind likes to wake up or not. There's a set time where you shower. It doesn't matter if your mind doesn't want to shower first thing in the morning. There's a set time where you sit and you do puja or study or whatever sadhana it is that you do, whether the mind feels like or not. You sit and you chant. And those are the things, the daily disciplines that help you to gain power over your mind. The other thing is by following the four stages of life, brahmacharya, grihastha, vanaprastha, sannyasa, thinking about what the duties are in each of those stages and sticking to those duties, slowly the mind comes under our control also, right? The other thing is we should not care if others are doing their duty. A lot of times, our justification for not doing our duty and our justification for doing what we like and not doing what we don't like is you hear this in your kids. I mean, if you don't want to judge yourself because it's hard to judge yourself, you hear this in your kids. They have to wash the dishes, and their reason for not washing the dishes is, well, my sibling didn't wash the dishes either, right? So there's a justification that others are not doing their duty, and therefore I won't do my duty because I don't feel like. But we have to just think about what is my duty and do it whether others are doing it or not, right? Like this, purity of mind can slowly be developed. It is a slow process because the impurities have been developed over years and years and years of lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes. It's not going to go away instantly. I mean, it will go away instantly the day you get moksha, but to get that, you need to reduce the impurities to a certain degree also, right? And if you don't know what you should be doing, like I don't know what daily disciplines I should be doing, I don't know what my duty is, well, the shortcut that Guruji had said was to have bhakti for Guru and to listen to whatever it is that the Guru says with shraddha and to do it like that. So that's a shortcut for those who are interested in taking it. These are some things. We could talk for like the whole class on purity of mind, right? But these are some things to reflect. The next quality is jnana yoga vyavastitihi, steadfastness in knowledge and yoga. Some people translate it as knowledge, yoga of knowledge, right? That jnana yoga. Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya translates it as steadfastness in knowledge and in yoga. He explains jnana is learning the nature of the self, where I am, from shastras and from our acharya. And yoga is absorption of the mind in that Atma Jnana. Now, there isn't much to say about this because where there is purity, there will automatically also be steadfastness in knowledge. But to develop this jnana yoga vyavastitihi, one of the things that we can do is study daily. Daily study. No matter what, we make sure we are in some satsang every single day. And if you are not privy to in-person satsang, which is the most ideal, then you find virtual satsangs. And if virtual satsangs don't work for you, you read. I mean, there are over 2,000 publications in just Chinmaya Mission itself. So there will definitely be something for someone to study every single day. All we have to do is make the time for it, right? Then dana. Danam is translated as charity. That is the worst translation for the word danam. I do not like English translations for these beautiful Sanskrit words that we have. So I'm not going to use the word charity. I'm telling you what it is not. Danam is not charity. What is danam? Danam is, to the best of our ability, sharing our wealth. Not money, but whatever we have. Food, money, clothes, good thoughts, a smile, time, knowledge, whatever we have, sharing it to the best of our capacity. And the thing about danam is it is not about quantity or percent. I will give 10%, right? It is an attitude of giving. It is an attitude that comes from the heart with the sentiment that I have been given so much. So it is a irresistible feeling that is there that I also ought to give. Whatever it is that I feel, it is a feeling that I ought to give, right? So the feeling that I'm always taking from the universe, taking from people, taking from parents, taking, it is my opportunity to give something to society. This is my contribution in what I'm doing. And when you give wholeheartedly, right? Now, the word that is used when we talk about danam is yatha shakti, means you give as per your capacity. You tell me whose giving power is stronger. Someone who has $1,000,000 and gives $1,000, or someone who has $1,000 and gives $500. See, the amount may be less, but the giving power is more. So it is not about amount. It is about giving as per our capacity. Bhagavan's measurement is never the amount. It is what I have given based on what I have. This is dana. Now, danam will be practiced by everybody in different ways. But whatever it is that we value and whatever it is that we have, those are the things that we give to others. Right? This is dana. I have I, I've seen my mom. I when I think of dana, one of the people that comes to my mind is my mom. It's good she's not here, so I can say this. Right? I've seen her go to a supplier's office, and the secretary tells her, "Oh, your watch is really nice." And in front of them, she takes it off and she gives it to them. You like it? Here, have it. And it is something that I've seen her do over and over again. Because in her, I don't know what it is, I've never asked her, but I mean, I'm supposing only. In her mind, it's an opportunity to give something that she values to someone who values it. Right? Now, please, when we do danam, we are not giving things that we don't need anymore. That is not called danam. You know how we have, what is it called? winter drive and summer drive, and they say, okay, everybody bring something to give, and you go to your closet and you're like, well, this doesn't fit me anymore. Well, my kids don't need this anymore. Well, I don't have use for this anymore. And those things that you don't want and you don't need, you put them in a bag and then you take them and you drop them off and you're like, I did such a good job. I did such a big donation. You know what? You just gave away things you didn't need. That's not called dhanam. Dhanam is giving something that you value to someone who values it. Do you know one time our kids in this was when we were in Toronto, we were as part of our seva or as their one of their seva projects, all the donations that came in for uh, as part of a clothing drive, they were supposed to separate it, adult clothes, kids' clothes, by age and all. They found torn clothes. They found single shoes. They found all kinds of things and people give it thinking they're giving. Uh, How? So when you're doing dhanam, please ask yourself, am I giving away something I don't need and just calling it dhanam? Or am I actually doing that? This is a test for your own mind, right? Okay, let's do one. The next one is damaha. Damaha is control of senses. I mean, you'll commonly find it translated as control of senses, but I like Guruji's translation the best. Guruji translates damaha. Guruji means Swami Tejomayananda, the previous head of Chinmay Mission, Swami Tejomayananda. He translates this word as mastery over our senses. Okay? There's a difference between control and mastery. There's someone who was saying, I have had my driver's license for 30 years and I have never gotten into a single accident. And so the other person said, really? How? Well, I never drove. Well, I mean, so over here also, when we're talking about mastery over our senses, it is not that we don't use them, but we use them intelligently. So I use my senses and they go out into the world. But when I see that there's danger, that they're going to get sucked into something, I quickly pull them back, the way the turtle withdraws its limbs. So there's a mastery over when my senses are used and when they are not used. This is dhamma, sense control. My senses should only go where I want them to go for as long as I want them to be there. On this topic of sense control, well, in Vivekachudamani, which is one of Bhagavan Adi Shankaracharya's compositions, he tells this really interesting verse about how there are 5 animals. He describes 5 animals and the consequences of them being attracted to sense objects with one of their sense organs. He says the elephant is destroyed because of its um uh it because it's attracted to touch. The elephant, it likes to rub against things and also it goes and it rubs against something and then that's when it gets caught. The fish is caught by taste. It sees a worm and it doesn't think, oh, it has a string attached, I shouldn't eat it, and it goes and it gets caught, right? So the elephant gets caught by touch, the fish gets caught by taste. The bee gets caught by smell. It smells that pollen and then it goes into the flower and then the flower closes and then it dies inside. The deer gets caught by sound. People who go deer hunting, they play these like sounds that attract deer. And the moth gets caught by light. When it's dark and you have a candle burning, you will see the next morning countless moths dead around that flame, right? They fly right into it. And he says this because he's trying to make a point. And his conclusion is what to talk of a human being who has all these 5 senses and they are uncontrolled. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but that is the sentiment, right? What to talk about us who have all of these 5 senses that are uncontrolled. So, damaha is the capacity to control our senses. One of the ways we can try to develop damaha is to, well, there are countless ways. One technique is cold turkey. Have you heard of cold turkey? Where you just say, I am not going to do this anymore, starting from today, right? What will happen? I am I am not going to eat sweets, even if I'm going to die. No problem, let death come. That kind of cold turkey resolve, right? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to look away. I'm not going to have it. Right? The other is where you make a schedule and you say, okay, today I have this like habit of having sugar 5 times a day or 5 spoons of sugar in my tea or whatever it is. Okay, by the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to have reduced it. So every day I'll reduce it by half a teaspoon, and eventually I will control it by reducing it over time. Those are two techniques by which one can develop damaha. You choose whichever one you think will work for you. I think the best one is cold turkey because our mind has the capacity to listen to us when we tell it to do something. A test of the fact that we have damaha is this. If you see a mithai or any kind of food that you really like, right? Let's take something that everyone will like. I don't know something that everyone will like. Okay, let us take a samosa, right? Because we always talk about sweets. And you haven't eaten a samosa, or let's take a paneer samosa. The paneer samosas from the Chinmay Mission Trinidad restaurant in the ashram are the best. Okay, so you've only heard about these samosas being talked about, and you've never eaten them. And now someone brings paneer samosas, and there's one remaining, and that paneer samosa is on the counter. And you decide that after you go and you sit and you do your japa, you're going to come and you're going to eat this paneer samosa. And nothing and nobody can stop you because it's your samosa and you're going to eat it. Well, you come back and you see a rat walking over your samosa. Now, you tell me what happened to that resolve. Nobody can dare stop me from eating this samosa. Well, the moment that the rat walks even around it, you will say that is not food anymore, and it will go straight in the garbage. There's 100% damaha at that time because you understand the implication of the fact that a rat has gone on your food. Because you understand that there's a danger in eating it now. When we understand that our senses being uncontrolled is dangerous to our pursuit of our goal, at that moment, damaha will come. Right? Okay, so now these are just the first few qualities. We will go faster from next week. This was a slow, warm up before we pick up speed and see the remaining 20 whatever that are there. Okay, so I will do one om now, and then I will pause for questions. Oh, for questions, just the style of this class is we will start at whatever time your time zone starts at the 30, 7:30, 6:30, 5:30, and we'll have class until for 1 hour, 15 minutes. In that time, normally we will also include some discussion where everyone will break out into groups and have a little discussion, and we will end with question and answer. Okay. Couple of announcements. If you are in Guyana, I don't know where everybody is. If you are in Guyana, oh, I see some in Guyana. Well, please don't miss coming for dosa day. Swamiji is making paneer dosa, masala dosa, pizza dosa, chai, And so if you're not in Guyana, please look for a ticket and come as soon as possible. It's from 11 to 2, and you're going to be missing out greatly if you're not here. Far. This is called justification. We're having a Dosa Day fundraiser at the ashram today. 108 Nights of Bhagavad Gita is going on every night. It is being streamed live on Facebook, internet dependent, and it is being uploaded to YouTube within a day or 2 or 3. Again, internet dependent on how quickly it gets uploaded. But please feel free to join whenever your time allows. You can go back and catch up on the satsangs as well. And I will see you all next Saturday. Okay. All right. Now questions. Let me, if you have any questions, just raise your hand. Yes. Vishnu Priya. Where's, oh, there you go.
Hariom Jinaji, so it's a very old question and we've discussed many times, but still it's not sunk in. So talking about purity of mind, that point really hit hard, that if somebody could read your thoughts, would you be okay with that? And that's a really good test to have in your mind 24 hours. So when you try to bring purity of mind, you are okay until the circumstances are okay. But as soon as you get an outside stimulus, the person is not behaving according to you, you suddenly lose it. And then you're saying, don't see if other people are doing their duty or not. You have to do what's right. But the mind automatically goes, well, they are behaving like this with me. I'm not going to be. You suddenly flip. It's very hard to stay like that in those circumstances.
Okay. So at that time, the mind is valuing equality. If they're not doing, then I shouldn't do, right? But when you realize that more than equality, you want peace of mind, and more than equality, you want your moksha, then you'll give up that desire of equality, of they doing like me and all of that, I think. The other thing is last week in Manashodhanam, we were talking about compassion, right? Having compassion and understanding that if they're doing what they're doing, there must be a reason that is beyond their control. Then your karma also to face that. And actually, problems coming from the outside is important because that is where we have the true test of whether we've developed these values or not. Otherwise, we sit in a little bubble and we think we're greater than ourselves. And, we've developed purity of mind and we have all these great qualities. And the field is meant for us to test how well we are progressing, right? So the journey is not about being able to have purity of mind when no one is around or when circumstances are conducive. The journey is being able to develop it in spite of whatever comes. So don't worry, just keep trying. Try those any of the techniques that we talked about in developing purity of mind. Purity of mind is tremendously developed the more we give up our likes and dislikes. So just you do your best and sticking to your duty and with sincerity, and you pray to Bhagavan when impurities come and say, Bhagavan, I didn't make this, I mean, maybe I did things, but I didn't make this. So you please help me. I'm trying my best. You help me. Like that. Whatever method helps you to manage that mind at that time, you use. But it won't go away in one day. It's not something that, okay, well, now I'm going to try purity of mind and I'm never going to, err. And you keep trying and eventually it will come. It will reduce over time. That's the, yes. Vidyaji, go ahead.
Hi, Sitaram, everyone. I'm the same guy. So this is the first time I'm joining, so thank you very much for this. I just wanted to ask, I think it's interesting that as we have this purity of mind and so on, but in this context of Arjuna, you said, that we are more concerned about what we're doing, and we're not concerned about others who are not doing their duties and so on. But wasn't that the essence of what was happening with Arjuna, who was fighting unrighteousness from his own family? You know what I mean? And so I just wondered, like, what then is if we are pure of mind and we're seeing, I'm hearing two things. If you're pure of mind and other people are unrighteous, we let them be, because I I'm focused on my own well-being. Whereas in the Gita, what Krishna is saying, no, you have to fight on righteousness. So I just
Okay.
wonder, yeah,
Let me clarify. Everyone, it
sure,
is 8:45. If you let me just answer this question and then I'll
sure.
do
Thank
prayer.
you. Thank you,
Okay.
yeah.
So first of all, there are different things being talked about. When we talk about developing these qualities, we're talking about not using this list of qualities to judge whether other people have them or not. That was the context I was saying it in, like fearlessness and purity of mind, and now danam and all of these things. Usually when we hear this list, what happens is our mind tends to think, oh, this person doesn't have this person doesn't have this person doesn't have this. But when we study these qualities, we're meant to study them to think about our own self. Right? That is what the study of these qualities is meant to do. Now, with respect to Arjuna specifically, see, he is speaking to Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and Bhagavan Sri Krishna is speaking to him in the role of someone who is protecting dharma, and in the role of a teacher. So Bhagavan Sri Krishna instructing Arjuna is from those perspectives. We have a duty to protect Sanatana Dharma. We have a duty to stand up for what is right. If someone is doing something that is going to cause a problem for in dharma, then I have to stand up and fight it. We're in Hinduism, we don't have complacency from that point of view, right? But we're talking about if someone is not doing their duty, I shouldn't use that as a justification to not do my duty. That was what I was saying right now. Means one person didn't come to work on time, so I use it as an excuse for me also to not come to work on time. I shouldn't use someone not doing their duty as a justification for me to not do my duty. That was a point. With respect to Arjuna, Arjuna's logic for not fighting was purely based on selfishness. And because his decision was going to impact posterity, it had to be removed. If you are in a role where you can say something to someone that will teach them, because you are in you have a position of teaching and you have a responsibility to teach them, you have to say something. But if you don't have that position, then you don't say anything, right? So it depends on your position, your relationship with the person, that will determine the response that you have to them. But no, if that's the message I gave, please rewind that. There's no complacency to seeing adharma happen and saying nothing about it. We're talking about different things. We're talking about self-development when we're talking about these values. We're talking about not justifying not doing our duties because others are not doing their duties, but we're talking about doing our duty. One of our duties is to make sure that Sanatana Dharma is protected. So letting people walk all over it is lack of doing our duty also, right? So even from that point of view, we can see it, we can see it as our own, we're focusing on our own development at that time, right? I hope that answers, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but yeah. Okay, so let me do closing prayer and then I will stay back for a few minutes just to hang out if anyone wants to say anything. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Shri Sadgurunath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sorry, everybody. I went 5 minutes